In this video, I am not doing a guided practice with you. I am just demonstrating for you passing a variable by reference versus passing a variable by value. This is a topic from chapter 4. So let me just trace through this program with you and then we'll run it using the debugger, and I'll show you the difference, as I mentioned before, between passing a variable by reference and passing a variable by value. So here I've got a function called American Dad, and it has a void return type, and I'm passing to it an integer that I'm calling alpha, and this is my function declaration. I have another function declaration called Bob's Burgers, and I have another variable that's an integer that I'm calling beta, but notice the ampersand following the int. If you type an ampersand after the data type in any formal parameter in a function, then that variable will be passed by reference, by what is called reference, as opposed to the default passing by value, and I'll show you what that means. So in my integer main function here, I have declared two ints a and b. I ask the user to type in a value for a and b, and then I read those two values in. I'm doing it using a technique, not sure if we've covered yet or not, but you can have the user type in more than one value at a time, and you can read in multiple values, and as long as the user separates them with a space, both of the characters that the user typed will be read into these two variables. And this is the alternative to doing something like this, where I'm reading in a value for b separately. And up here on your edit menu, you can highlight lines of code, multiple lines of code, and comment them out all in once. So I wanted to demonstrate that. So we will read in two values, and then I pass both of those variables to their respective functions, and then within the functions I perform some mathematical calculations on the variable, and I display that result. And then after those two function calls, I display the values of a and b, their original two variables, here to show you the difference. Okay, so I'm going to use the debugger, and what you can do if you're having issues with your program trying to get it to run properly, trying to get your program to behave the way you want it to, and you may not be able to figure out why it's not running the way it should, or it's not giving you the values that you would expect. Along here in the left hand margin, if you single left click, you can create what's called a stop point. Okay, so I've created a stop point here on line 19. And I'm going to go ahead and run this program. I'm going to run it using the debug option, which is this check mark up here at the top. And so what if that will do is it will launch the program. My executable has launched. Okay, so notice that the program has launched the executable, but it hasn't printed this line yet. It's hit that stop point, and it's waiting for you to tell it what to do. And notice all of the options that I have here. At the bottom, I can go to the next line. I can go into a function if I'm sitting on a function, or I can skip over it. So I'm going to click next line, and notice now that spit out the value, or it spit out the string that I'm inserting to the cout statement, and it's waiting for the user input. I'm going to hit next line again, and if I keep hitting next line, it's not moving because it's still waiting for that user input. Okay, so I'm going to type in a couple of values here. How about 4 and 5? So notice what happened to those values 4 and 5. Inside the American Dad function, I added 7 to alpha, so that would give me 11. Okay, that's not anything unexpected. Inside the Bob's Burgers function, beta, I added 3 to it, so that ended up being 8. 5 plus 3 is 8, and that's not unexpected. But what is unexpected is what happens to these, or what had happened to these two variables in that whole process. So now after the function call, you can see that A is still 4, but B is 8. So when you pass a variable by reference, you're actually passing the address to the storage location of that variable. So if it's used at all in that function, any changes you make to that variable are made to that storage location. Whereas any variable that's passed by value, and I think I mentioned this in one of our previous projects, is that function will actually create its own storage location, and even though it has the same name here, it's a completely different storage location, and that's where 11 was stored before it was displayed there. So passing by value just passes a copy of the value, and that's placed in a new variable location. Passing by reference will pass that the address of the location of that variable in memory. So any changes made to it will be reflected in that variable back where it was located at. I'm going to place a stop point on this American Dad function now and run the debugger. Okay, so it's asking a value for A and B. I'll type something in. How about 12 and 32? Okay, now it's stopped on that American Dad function. If I hit into function, then it'll take me through this function. Something you can also do while debugging is you can let your cursor hover over the variable and you can see the value of the variable. Step into the Bob's Burger function. Same thing, I can hover over it. Now check out this variable. Notice the ampersand there, and check out the at 0xb. That is the hexadecimal representation of the address in memory where that number 32 is being stored. Pretty interesting there. Okay, so using this debugger option is a good way to go through your code, help yourself trace through your code. If you're having a runtime error or it's not behaving the way you would expect, you can trace through it line by line until you discover what is wrong with either your mathematical statements or the way you've coded your loops or whatever it might be that you're having trouble with. So, I hope this helps and clears up any questions about passing variables by reference versus by value. Make sure you know yourself.